What happens when a beloved music legend walks into what should be a simple morning interview, only to face an attack so vicious, so uncalled for, that he has no choice but to walk out on live television? In just 34 seconds, one comment from host Allison Hammond would turn a friendly conversation into absolute chaos. Cliff Richard sat down on the bright, cheerful sofa of This Morning, expecting the usual questions. You know, the kind he had answered 1,000 times before. Questions about his latest album, his tour dates, maybe a fun story or two from his decades in the music business. He was there to promote his new music, to connect with fans, to have a nice chat. That was it, nothing complicated. But from the moment he settled into a seat, something felt off. Allison Hammond had this look in her eyes, not warm, not welcoming. There was something else there, something that made the whole studio feel just a little bit colder. "Cliff, thanks for joining us," Allison said, but her smile did not quite reach her eyes. "It's lovely to be here," Cliff replied, ever the professional. He had done this hundreds of times. He knew how to handle himself on camera. "So, new album," Allison continued, leaning back in her chair like she owned the place. "Tell me, at your age, do you ever think maybe it is time to just, let the younger artists have their moment?" The question hit like a slap. Cliff's smile faltered for just a second. He blinked, trying to process what he had just heard. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice still polite but with an edge of confusion. "I mean," Allison went on, waving her hand dismissively, "you have had an incredible career, truly incredible. But do not you think the music industry has kind of moved on? Like, your sound is very retro." "Retro." She said it like it was a disease. Cliff shifted in his seat. "Well, I think there is always room for different types of music. My fans seem to enjoy what I do, and that is what matters to me." "Your fans?" Allison repeated, and there was something mocking in her tone. "Right. I mean, they are all a bit older, are not they? Like, properly old. Do you ever worry that once that generation is gone, your music just kind of disappears?" The studio went quiet. You could feel the tension rising. Even the camera operators looked uncomfortable. Cliff took a deep breath. He was a gentleman. He had always been a gentleman. But this was crossing a line. "Allison, I'm not sure what you are getting at," he said carefully. "I'm here to talk about my music, not to be insulted." "Insulted?" Allison laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "I'm just being honest. I mean, come on, Cliff. You've been doing this for, 60 years? 70? At some point, do not you just want to retire and let someone else have the spotlight?" "I love what I do," Cliff said, his voice firmer now, "and I will continue to do it as long as I want to. I do not need your permission for that." "Touchy," Allison said, smirking at the camera. "I hit a nerve, did not I?" Cliff stared at her. This was not an interview anymore. This was an ambush. "You know what?" Allison continued, clearly enjoying herself now. "I think the problem is that people like you just cannot accept that the world has moved on. You are stuck in the past, making music for people who are also stuck in the past. It is all very sad, really. Sad." She called his life's work sad. Cliff's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of the sofa. He was trying so hard to keep his composure, to not give her the satisfaction of seeing him lose his temper. "Allison," he said slowly, "I came here today in good faith. I came here to talk about my new album, to share my music with your viewers. I did not come here to be disrespected." "Oh, disrespected," Allison said, rolling her eyes. "You are so sensitive. I'm just asking questions. Is not that what journalists do?" "Journalists ask questions with respect," Cliff shot back. "What you are doing is just rude." "Rude?" Allison leaned forward, her eyes flashing. "You want to talk about rude? How about turning up here, taking up airtime that could go to someone relevant, someone people actually care about? How about that?" The words hung in the air like poison. The crew members exchanged horrified glances. This was live television. Millions of people were watching this unfold in real time. Cliff stood up, slowly, deliberately. He reached up and removed his microphone, the small clip making a soft click as he unhooked it from his collar. "What are you doing?" Allison asked, her smirk fading just a little. "I am leaving," Cliff said simply. "I do not have to sit here and listen to this." "Oh, come on," Allison said, but there was a hint of panic in her voice now. "Do not be so dramatic. Sit down." "No," Cliff said. He placed the microphone carefully on the sofa cushion. "I have been in this business for a very long time, Allison. I have dealt with tough interviews, difficult questions, challenging journalists. but I have never, and I mean never, been treated with such blatant disrespect." "You are overreacting," Allison tried, but her voice had lost its edge. "Am I?" Cliff asked. He looked directly at her, his eyes steady and calm. "You invited me here. I came in good faith. And from the moment I sat down, you have done nothing but try to tear me down. Why? What did I ever do to you?" Allison opened her mouth, but no words came out. "I will tell you what I think," Cliff continued, his voice quiet but powerful. "I think you are threatened. I think you see someone who has had a long, successful career and it bothers you. Maybe because you are worried about your own relevance. Maybe because you are scared that one day someone will say the same things to you that you have just said to me." "That is ridiculous," Allison stammered. "Is it?" Cliff picked up his jacket from the back of the sofa. "You can think whatever you want about my music. You can think it is old-fashioned. You can think it is irrelevant. That is your right, but you do not get to sit there and tell me that I do not matter. You do not get to tell me that my fans do not matter, because they do. They matter to me, and I matter to them, and that is worth more than anything you could ever say." The silence in the studio was deafening. Allison sat there, frozen, clearly not knowing what to do or say. "I am going to leave now," Cliff said, "and I'm going to go and make music for the people who want to hear it. The people who appreciate it, the people who do not think that age is something to be ashamed of." He turned to walk away, but then stopped and looked back at her one more time. "You know, Allison," he said softly, "one day you are going to be older too, and I really hope that when that day comes, someone treats you with more kindness than you have shown me today." And with that, Cliff Richard walked off the set. The cameras kept rolling because nobody knew what else to do. Allison sat there, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You could see the exact moment she realized what had just happened, what she had just done. "We are going to take a quick break," she finally managed to say, her voice shaking. But it was too late. The damage was done. The whole world had just watched a beloved icon be treated like garbage on live television, and they had watched him stand up for himself with grace and dignity. In the control room, producers were scrambling, phones were ringing off the hook, social media was exploding. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were everywhere. People were outraged. Not at Cliff, at Allison. Because here is the thing, Cliff Richard did not lose his temper. He did not shout. He did not throw insults back at her. He simply stated his boundaries and walked away. That is real strength. That is real class. Meanwhile, Allison had shown herself to be exactly what Cliff had said. Someone who was threatened by success, by longevity, by someone who had earned their place in the industry through decades of hard work and talent. Back on the sofa, after the break, Allison tried to recover. She tried to make light of it, to laugh it off. "Well, that was certainly unexpected," she said to the camera, forcing a smile. "Cliff Richard, everyone, a bit sensitive this morning, it seems." But nobody was buying it. The viewers at home were not buying it. The people on social media were not buying it. Even her own crew members were looking at her with disappointment, because what Allison had done was not journalism. It was not entertainment. It was cruelty disguised as honesty, and people saw right through it. The interview had started like any other, a guest, a host, some small talk, but it had turned into something else entirely, a moment that showed the true character of both people involved. Cliff Richard, the consummate professional, the man who had spent his whole life entertaining people, bringing joy through music. The man who, even when provoked, refused to sink to pettiness. And Allison Hammond, who had let her own insecurities and need for attention turn what should have been a pleasant conversation into a car crash. The worst part was how unnecessary it all was. Cliff had not come in with an attitude. He had not been difficult. He had simply been himself, polite, friendly, ready to chat. And Allison had taken that kindness and trampled all over it. "Do you ever think maybe it is time to just let the younger artists have their moment?" she had asked. As if there was not room for everyone. As if success was a finite resource that had to be hoarded and guarded. As if age made someone less worthy of a platform. It was a mindset that revealed so much about her. The way she saw the world as a competition. The way she could not celebrate someone else's achievements without feeling threatened by them. Cliff had seen it immediately. That is why his response had been so measured, so calm. He knew exactly what was happening. He had probably dealt with people like her his whole career, people who smiled to your face while trying to knock you down. But he had also reached his limit, and when he stood up and took off that microphone, he was not just standing up for himself. He was standing up for every person who had ever been told they were too old, too irrelevant, too past it. You are stuck in the past, making music for people who are also stuck in the past, Allison had sneered. But what she did not understand, what she could not understand, was that music is timeless. Good music does not have an expiration date. It does not matter if a song was written yesterday or 50 years ago. If it moves people, if it brings them joy, if it means something to them, then it matters. Cliff understood that. His fans understood that. But Allison, in her desperate need to seem relevant and edgy, had completely missed the point. How about turning up here, taking up airtime that could go to someone relevant, someone people actually care about? That was the moment. The moment when the mask fully slipped. When Allison stopped pretending this was about journalism or entertainment and revealed what it was really about. Ego. Pure, simple ego. She wanted to be the star. She wanted the attention on her. And having a legend like Cliff Richard on her show, someone with real accomplishments and real talent, made her feel small. So she tried to make him small instead. But it backfired spectacularly. Because Cliff did not shrink. He did not apologize. He did not beg to stay. He simply recognized that he deserved better and walked away. I have been in this business for a very long time, Allison. I have dealt with tough interviews, difficult questions, challenging journalists, but I have never, and I mean never, been treated with such blatant disrespect. Those words carried weight because they were true. Cliff had done thousands of interviews. He had faced tough questions before. He had been challenged, debated, even criticized, but always with a basic level of respect, always with an acknowledgement that he was a human being worthy of dignity. Allison had stripped that away. And in doing so, she had shown everyone watching exactly who she was. I think you are threatened. I think you see someone who has had a long, successful career, and it bothers you. Cliff had hit the nail on the head, and you could see it in Allison's face. The way her expression changed, the way the smirk disappeared, the way she suddenly looked uncertain, vulnerable, caught out. Because he was right. She was threatened. By his success, by his longevity, by the respect he commanded. And instead of learning from him, instead of celebrating him, she had tried to tear him down. Maybe because you are worried about your own relevance. Maybe because you are scared that one day someone will say the same things to you that you have just said to me. And there it was, the truth that Allison did not want to face, that someday she would be the older one. Someday, someone younger would be sitting in her seat, asking her if maybe it was time to step aside. And she would remember this moment, this cruel, unnecessary moment. And she would realize how it felt. You do not get to sit there and tell me that I do not matter. You do not get to tell me that my fans do not matter. Because they do. They matter to me, and I matter to them. This was the heart of it, the core truth that Allison could not take away, no matter how hard she tried. Cliff Richard mattered, not because of charts or sales or awards, though he had plenty of those, but because he had touched people's lives. Because his music had been there for people in good times and bad. Because he had given them something real. And Allison, sitting there in her host chair, trying so hard to be clever and cutting, had given them nothing but ugliness. One day you are going to be older too, and I really hope that when that day comes, someone treats you with more kindness than you have shown me today. Those final words were not said with anger or bitterness. They were said with genuine hope, with compassion, even because Cliff Richard, even after being attacked and insulted, could still find it in himself to wish better for his attacker. That is grace. That is character. That is what separates people who have real substance from people who are just playing a part. When Cliff walked off that set, he left behind chaos. But he also left behind a lesson, a reminder that you do not have to accept mistreatment, that you can stand up for yourself with dignity. That walking away is sometimes the strongest thing you can do. Allison tried to spin it afterward, tried to make it seem like Cliff was being difficult, oversensitive, unable to take a joke. But nobody believed her, because they had all seen it with their own eyes. They had seen her attack an innocent man for no reason. They had seen her try to humiliate someone who had done nothing to deserve it. And they had seen that man respond with more class and integrity than she could ever hope to have. The interview was supposed to last 15 minutes. It barely made it past 5. 5 minutes that destroyed Allison's credibility and elevated Cliff's reputation even higher. Because here is what people remember. They do not remember the charts or the sales figures or the number of hits someone had. They remember how people made them feel. They remember moments of real humanity. And in that moment, Cliff Richard showed everyone what real humanity looks like. what it means to have principles, what it means to value yourself and demand respect. Allison Hammond showed the opposite. She showed what happens when ego and insecurity take over, when you care more about looking clever than being kind, when you forget that the person across from you is a real human being with feelings and dignity. The whole thing could have been avoided if Allison had just done her job, asked normal questions, showed basic respect, had a pleasant conversation with a music legend. That is all it would have taken. But she could not help herself. She had to try to be edgy. She had to try to create a moment. She had to try to make herself the star. Well, she got her moment. Just not the one she wanted. She got the moment where she was exposed as cruel and petty. The moment where she proved that she did not deserve to sit in that chair. The moment where she showed that she valued ratings over human decency. And Cliff got his moment too. The moment where he proved that you do not need to shout to be heard. The moment where he showed that true power comes from knowing your worth. The moment where he reminded everyone why he has lasted so long in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. Because legends are not made just by talent. They are made by character. By how you treat people when the cameras are rolling and when they are not. By whether you lift others up or tear them down. By whether you use your platform for good or for ego. Cliff Richard has spent decades being a legend. And in those 5 minutes on that sofa, he proved exactly why. Not because of anything he sang, not because of any performance, but because of who he is as a person. Meanwhile, Allison Hammond spent 5 minutes proving that she still has a lot to learn. About respect, about humility, about what really matters in life. The saddest part is that it did not have to be this way. She had a legend sitting right there. Someone who could have shared wisdom, stories, insights from a lifetime in music. Someone who could have inspired viewers and made for genuinely great television. Instead, she chose to be mean. She chose to mock and belittle. She chose to make someone feel small so she could feel big. And Cliff chose to walk away because he knew his value. He knew he did not have to sit there and take it. He knew that some things are more important than publicity or promotion or staying in the headlines. Things like dignity, like self-respect, like refusing to let someone treat you like you do not matter. I am going to go and make music for the people who want to hear it, the people who appreciate it, the people who do not think that age is something to be ashamed of. And that is exactly what he did. He walked off that set with his head held high. He went back to doing what he loved. He continued to bring joy to people who valued what he had to offer, while Allison sat there in the wreckage of her own making, trying to figure out how it had all gone so wrong so fast. The answer was simple. She had forgotten the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Show respect if you want respect. Be kind if you want kindness. She had broken that rule in the worst possible way. On live television, in front of millions, with someone who had done nothing to deserve it. And Cliff Richard had reminded everyone what happens when you stand up to bullies, when you refuse to play their game, when you choose self-respect over everything else. He won. Not by fighting, not by arguing, not by stooping to her level, but by simply recognizing that he deserved better and acting on that recognition. That is the real story here. Not the drama, not the conflict, not the viral moment. The real story is about a man who knew his worth and refused to compromise it. About someone who could walk away from chaos with grace and dignity intact. And about a host who learned, in the hardest way possible, that cruelty always backfires. That trying to make yourself look big by making others look small never works. That real respect cannot be demanded or manufactured. It has to be earned. Cliff Richard earned it over decades of hard work and talent and treating people well. Allison Hammond lost it in 34 seconds of ego and meanness. And that is a lesson worth remembering.